In the last session, we have discussed about the what is Spring Boot, and we have seen the tools in which is coming with the Spring Boot, and we have seen the softwares which are required to develop the Spring Boot application. Okay, so we have seen Java 17. We do have Java 17, Maven, and Eclipse. Anyone you can have. IntelliJ idea. It's like you have to take a pro version to develop the create the Spring Boot applications, or you can use a spring.io website, and there you can create a project and you can import it into as a Maven project into the IntelliJ idea. And if you are using STS, you don't need to do anything. You just have to. I'll teach you like how to use it, how to create a Spring Boot application in Spring Tool Suite if you're using Spring Tool Suite. And the Postman, you will be using the Postman to to test your endpoints actually. Okay, we will be seeing that how we will be testing our endpoints. Okay, that's SQL Developer. So we'll be using SQL Developer to connect with to store our database, to store our tables in our database, and to retrieve the data, to delete the data, to update the data. We'll be using SQL Developer. We'll be using after discussing the Spring Boot core, we will be going to this Spring Data JPA, and we will be integrating the Spring Boot with the Data JPA, or we can say that Spring Boot with uh, uh, the backend technologies like Hibernate or JPA, and we can store the data into the database, and we can see how we can update it, how we can delete it, how we can retrieve the data from the database and all. Okay, so now we'll just go and create a simple Spring Boot application. Okay, so we will be writing a simple hello world program, so where we will be exposing one endpoint, and we will be testing that endpoint using the Postman. Okay, so that's what we are going to do now. So now let me open the STS Spring Tool Suite. Starting. Yeah. So our Eclipse, our Spring Tool Suite is up and running now. Now what you have to do is once your Spring Tool Suite is up and running, you can see this kind of setup, this kind of I can say that this kind of links you can see it. You can, if you want to create any Spring Boot based applications, so you can click on the third option. There is a create new Spring Boot Spring Starter project. Okay, so just click on that. You can here you can see name here, name in the sense your project name. For example, I'll be giving my project name as just it's my first SB project. Okay, I'll just give the first SB API. Okay, just don't give spaces, just give first API, first SB API. So what is the version you are going to use? Java 17. I'm fine with Java 17. Okay, so what is the build tool you are going to use? Gradle with Kotlin, Gradle with Groovy, or Maven. I'm going to use Maven as a build tool. Okay, and the packaging is jar. Don't do chhedkani over here. And then here group. So what is the group name? Group name in the sense package name. Okay, what do you want to give the package name? For example, I'll say about my package name is com.first ESB. Com.first ESB. It's a API. It's my first Spring Boot API. Now, if you want to, this is the group ID, and if you want to make the group ID as your package itself, so you can directly write it over here. Okay, for com.first.sb.api. Okay, it will create a group ID similar. It will create a package name similar to the group ID. Okay, so fine. So click next. So now here choose the Spring Boot version. So the defaultly it is pointing to the 3.4.4. Okay, you can choose the previous version as well, or you can choose the new versions as well. And I'll recommend not to choose the snapshot versions and M3 versions. Choose the final version. 3.4.4 is the final version. Here 3.3.10 is the final version. You can choose any one version which is final. Okay. So if you are not seeing snapshot and M3 any other label after the version, so you can assume that that is a final version. Okay. So now here, now you want to choose the type of application you want to work with. Okay. So here you have so many are there. So many. If you want to work with AI, dev tools, Google Cloud, messagings, and you have file input output streams, Azure, NoSQL, Observability, OPS, SQL, security, Spring Cloud, circuit breaker, cloud config, cloud discovery, messaging. Yes, so many are there. Okay. But for us, we need only Spring Web. I'll search Spring Web. See, it is coming. In web, there are so many are there. Spring Web, Spring Reactive Web, Spring Web Services. Okay. So you have selected that. Check the box Spring Web. Click next. Now here you will be getting the base URL from where you are creating the Spring Boot application. From this Spring starter.spring.io from that site, you will be downloading the Spring Boot application. So click on finish. Click on finish. So once you click on finish, it will start downloading your Spring Boot project. So see here, you can see it is downloading the version of Spring 3.4.4. So once it's download, I'll show you the POM XML file. Okay. Yeah. So here our Spring Boot application is created. Okay. So let's open this. So in our Spring Boot application, you can see here how to identify an application is a Spring Boot application or normal application. There is a boot symbol over here. You can see in square brackets, they have included boot. Okay. So by seeing this, you can understand that this is a Spring Boot application. Let's jump to the pom.xml. Let's jump to the pom.xml. Let's see what are the dependencies we have added. So as of our knowledge, we have added only one dependency, that is a Spring Boot Starter Web. That's the only one dependency we have added. Okay. Now let's come over here, come down. See here, Spring Boot Starter Web is the only dependency we have added. And this Spring Boot Starter dependency will be having the dependencies which are required to develop your Spring Boot application. See here, Spring Starter validation, Spring Web, Spring Starter Web Services, WebFlux, WebSocket, Spring Boot Test also it is adding it, Spring Boot Test Auto Configuration, Spring Boot Test Configuration, okay, and messaging, Selenium, okay, there are so many, SLF4J jar, okay, so they are SLF4J, we are using it for the logging purpose, loggers we are using it instead of sysort, we will be using loggers. Okay, there's so many things which are added by the Spring Boot starter. If you want to add all these things in normal Spring based applications, you have to surf internet and you have to find the appropriate version which is compatible with the Java version. Right. So here the starter project, what it is doing, it is automatically here. You can see the Spring Boot starter project, it is automatically involving all the dependencies which are required to run the Spring web-based application. Correct. Okay. Here you can see at the properties level, we will be defining what are the versions we are using, what are the softwares we are using. ActiveMQ, and the software is version is this. Angus mail version, and we have Commons Codec, and we have so many are there. Hibernate, Hibernate version, Hibernate validator version, Hikari CP, Jakarta, Java X. There are so many things which is imported by the starter project, and you are not working all with all of them. Okay, so it is including all of them, but it is not needed all of them. Okay, we will be using only bunch of annotations. Okay, and by default, Spring Boot starter test would be added. If you add Spring Boot Web or not add Spring Boot Web, by default, the Spring Boot starter test would be added. And here internally, the Tomcat would be added. Let me find the Tomcat. Yeah, here you can see Tomcat. These are the Tomcat related dependencies only. Okay. So internally, Tomcat also be added. Okay. Fine. So now we are end up with this form.xml, and let me explain you over here what exactly the form.xml is having it. See, the form.xml is having the model version. So what is the model version we are using in our form? So we are using 4 is the model version, and the parent. See, this is the main thing actually. So Spring Boot starter parent version decides, Spring Boot starter parent will decide the version of all the dependencies. So if the Spring Boot starter parent will be having 3.4.4, the version automatically, here we are not mentioning any version here. Even though we can mention the version tag over here by using the version tag. See here, this is a version tag. But as you're using the Spring Boot starter 3.4.4, okay, as you're using the Spring Boot starter parent, you don't need to include the version. By default, the starter is responsible to include the version for you. Okay, so that is the parent. Control Z, don't need this version. Okay, the next thing, our group ID. So our group ID, as I said, like our group ID is com.first.sb.api, right? The same group ID I'm giving it. The artifact ID. The artifact ID is first ESB API. This is our project name. And the version. And the version is 0.0.1 hyphen snapshot. You can change the version from 0.0.1 to 1 as well. 1.0 as well. Currently, I'm working with my client. So we have created our own group ID and artifact ID. We have given the version as 1.0. Okay. So I can use this group ID, artifact ID, and version in other project as well. For example, let's say I want to work with some other project, let's say employee management system, where I need this first, where I want to use this first SB, first Spring Boot API application. Then what I'll do is I'll add the dependency tag, and I will add the group ID, artifact ID inside the dependencies tag. It will be something like this. Think like that. This is a different application. So I want to add this group ID and artifact in different application. What I'll do is I'll be adding dependency. Inside that, I'll be adding the group ID and artifact ID. So what it will do is, so this group ID, artifact ID automatically, when we run the Maven build, so the group ID and artifact ID would be automatically downloaded to your .m2 repository. I'll show you. Okay, I'll show you. Okay. So I'll take a one simple application. I'll integrate with the other application. I'll show you. Okay. So as of now, keep in mind, we can integrate, we can create a project, and we can add this project to the other project as well. by using the group ID, artifact ID, and the version as well. Fine. And the description name, what is the name of the project? That is the first Spring Boot API. And the description. So here I haven't given anything much. So it is a demo project for Spring Boot. Okay. So that's all we have, and the licenses and all. If you want to give any license related details, you can give it. And then who are the developers working, you can give the developer details as well. So all these are not necessary for you. Okay. So, and the properties, this is the main tag where you will be providing the versions, all the versions which you are working with your, for example, in this project I am using the Java 17 as a version. Okay, let's say I want to use the Hibernate as a 5.00. So I'll mention here, I'll say Hibernate dot version. I'll mention Hibernate version. See, end talk will automatically come. Here you'll be mentioning 5.00, 5.0.0, something like that. If you want to include any version, you can add in our properties. Okay, fine. As of now, I don't need it. I am removing it. So the dependency, under the dependencies tag only, you will be adding the multiple dependencies. See, under this dependencies tag, this is the opening tag and this is a closing tag. Under this dependency tag only, we will be adding the multiple dependencies. See here, we have a Spring Boot starter. This is one dependency. Spring Boot starter test is one more dependency. Here, dependency in the sense jar. Jar. Okay, fine. These jars will be downloaded to your .m2 repository. I'll show that. Okay. So here the dependency section is done. Now here build. So in the build section, you will be adding the plugins. So in order to work with Spring Boot, so you should be adding this Spring Boot Maven plugin. Okay. If you want to work with any other applications, for example, if you want to work with Quarkus, you should be adding Quarkus Maven plugin. Instead of Spring Boot Maven plugin, you can add Quarkus Maven plugin. Okay. So like that. Fine. So I hope you understood about this pom.xml. Okay. So now the dependencies, whatever the dependencies we have downloaded, let's go to the .m2 folder in your users. Okay. Let's find out whether this is there or not. Okay. So what is the group ID? Remember this group ID, org.springframework.boot. Okay. This is a group ID. Okay. Let me go to the C drive. Let me go to the C drive. C drive. In C drive, you will found users. Just go to the users and find the username. Okay. So here you have a username. If you are working with any other client, they will be giving the your ID. Okay, employee ID or any other ID, they will be giving it and they will be tagging it over here. So username. Then here find out .m2. So you can check here .m2. Here you have .m2. Okay, .m2. Click on .m2. So here in .m2 you have a repository. See, these are the dependencies you have downloaded in one shot. These many dependencies you have downloaded. Okay. So these some of the dependencies I have worked with actually. So I have worked with the Quarkus IO. Let me show you. This is playing with me today. The system is okay. Let's first see the dependency. See, I worked with the Quarkus. I'll show the dependencies of Quarkus. Yeah, Quarkus. See, these are the dependencies I have used to work with Quarkus. Similarly, in your you have you have downloaded the dependencies, right? The Spring Boot starter web dependency you have downloaded. This jar you have downloaded. Where it is available in this location, org.springframework. boot. In this location, it is available. Just go to the org. Find out where is org. Org here. Just type O, you'll find org. Okay. So now here org, in org, we have a Spring Boot. Let's go here again. Let's check it once again. Org.springboot spring framework dot boot is there. So just type yes, again type yes, again type yes, again type yes, again type yes. Here you have Spring Framework. Now, again, in Spring Framework, we have multiple dependencies. Now I want to search for boot, right? B, boot. See, the third option is boot. Now again, here we have multiple dependencies we have downloaded. So now we are looking for Spring Boot Starter Web. Let's see Spring Boot Starter Web. The Spring Boot Starter parent, Spring Boot Starter Web, where it is. Let's come down. Yeah, you can see, right? Spring Boot Starter Web. When we have downloaded, today only we have downloaded. What is the version we have downloaded? 3.4.4. So these many versions I have worked over the years actually. Okay. So 3.4.4 is the version which you are using now. Today we have downloaded. See here the jar, right? Spring Boot Starter Web and the version is 3.4.4. Okay. So when you add any dependency to your form XML file, by default, that dependency will be downloaded to your .m2 folder. This is we used to call it as a local repository. Okay. This repository .m2 is there, right? .m2 folder is a it's a Maven folder where it will be storing all the different types of repository. When we add any dependency, automatically those dependencies will be downloaded over here. Why it is downloading? See, every time if you download the dependency, okay, so it is kind of like, internet loss would be there. So what they used to do is they used to keep it in your local. So this is your local, right? Means this is in your computer, they are storing it. Whenever they need it, they'll take it. Okay. So if I give the different version, it's try to download that dependency. Let me give the different version. What is the different version we have? Okay. Spring Boot 3.4.4, something I'll give. Or Spring Boot 4.6. It's try to download the 3.4.6 dependency if it is there. If it is not there, it will throw an exception. That's what it will do. Let's go and update it. Once you add the new dependency, a new version, what you used to do is see, it is giving me an error for me because there is no 3.4.6. I've just bluntly given it. Okay. Let's try to force update it. Let's check whether it is downloaded or not. It will not download. It is not downloading. Okay. If I switch back to 3.4.4, check, it will take the it will search for the 3.4.4 in your local.m2 folder. If it is there, it will load it. It will download it. Okay. Okay, fine then. So in here pom.xml file, we can see all these tags. In dependencies, there is a dependencies tab is there. In this dependencies tab, you can see the jars which you have added. Spring Boot Starter Web, it's 1, and Spring Boot Starter Test, it is also 1. You have added. If you want to remove it, you can remove it. Okay. If you don't want to remove, I'll just do Control Z. It will come back. Okay, save. That's fine. Yeah. So I think in the next lecture we will be running the Spring Boot application. Until then, thank you.